Foreign trade, supply chain. Introduction to foreign trade consists of buying and selling goods to or from other countries, and in this process, three parts can be identified: exporter, goods, importer. Exporter is the person or company that sells goods to another country, and the importer is the person or company that buys the other goods from another country. And the goods are actually all the objects capable of being imported and exported. And foreign trade is a key to shaping the country's national economy. It is described as the number of imports and exports from one place to another that affect the trade balance. There are several factors involved in a company's decision to enter the foreign market. The first one is the globalization of competitors. Their position in the market is crucial for having many customers, and for that reason, the company needs to reach to foreign markets before its competitors. Secondly is customer demand, because customers often demand the products that do not come from the country that the company is located in. And leaving customers aside, the company may want to grow internationally, such as an emerging market. Finally, there are governments in some countries that are looking for capital investments, technology, and which give incentives, loans, and other use of property to companies that fit the need. Exporting seeks profits through the sale of products and services to foreign markets. This sale is characterized by having clients outside the country where the supplier's company is located. The type of exports. Well, there are two types, direct and independent. Direct exports is carried out with no intermediaries. Thus, it is necessary to people working in the company support the process by frequently traveling abroad. This type of export implies the company is able to handle all the tasks of international agreements and has a good network of contacts to offer and sell its product and services. And then we have the indirect, which is carried out through an intermediary agency, an agency that is in charge of exporting the product or service. Several export agents can be identified. First and the most common is the merchant exporter, who takes on all the risks and sells independently on the international market. The second example of an intermediary is the export corridor. In this case, it is the manufacturer who takes risks when it comes to maintaining more control over his product. Finally, there are export agents who, in addition to putting the producer in touch with the customer, are also in charge of searching for international financing, shipments, and distribution. Now we come to the export barriers. There are obstacles that hinder or prevent the entry of possible producers into the market. And below you will find various types of export barriers. The internal barriers, the domestic, imposed by a country to which you want to export the goods. They are intended to help the manufacturers that reside in the country and supply the domestic market. Three systems can be distinguished. Anti-dumping duties. The product is sold at a lower price to customers on the importing country than to the ones offered on the market of the exporting country. Countervailing duties. The state subsidizes specific goods, allowing their export at a reduced price. The state establishes a rate to avoid an unfair competition. And then we have restrictions on movements of goods. The states can restrict the movement of certain kinds of goods, exports or imports, establishing temporary quotas. And the possible disadvantages of the barrier is insufficient production capacity, absence of administrative staff, the export carried out by untrained staff. Now come to the internal barriers, foreign, the one presented by foreign countries. Logistics problems in transport and shipping, problems with loans and delays, problems with providing technical advice and service to the client. Now we come to the external barriers, domestic. The ones that imposed by the external environment of the company: high financing costs, lack of investment, excessive documentation for exporting procedures, and the external barriers foreign, the difference between tastes or preferences of consumers, different protocols, difficulty in finding a competent supplier, problems with distribution channels, imposition of tariff barriers by foreign countries, governments, high competition. Yes, I think we'll probably need to go over those again. Anyway, not to worry. Duties and tariffs. A tariff is a tax imposed on the goods imported by a nation, according to the rate specified by the type of product. As we have seen, tariff barriers are used to restrict trade. There are different types of tariffs. There's a specific tariff. For each unit of merchandise, a certain amount of tariff is paid, regardless of the value of the goods. Ad valorem tariffs is a percentage is charged according to the value of the goods. In the European Union, this tariff represents approximately 90% of the total number of tariffs. Common external tariffs. It is used among member countries that form a community. All countries within a commonly adopted within the community adopt a common external tariff in trade with third countries. There is a tariff structure established by for each economic sector of member countries. protectionist tariffs. It is used to intentionally inflate the price of imported products to protect the domestic industry from foreign competition. And a mixed combined tariff. It consists of specific tariff and an ad valorem tariff. Each unit of merchandise paid regardless of value plus the value tariff. Non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers are those that are not described in the context of a tariff, but have the same goal to prevent the free flow of goods between countries. We can distinguish between two types. These are the direct ones. They are quantitative restrictions on imports, such as automatic licenses, import quotas, discretionary licenses, minimum prices, top prices, etc. And indirect, these are the measures of domestic industry protection aimed at boosting exports and restricting the entry of foreign goods into the domestic market. The type of non-tariff barriers are rules of origin, are the regulations that establish the criteria for determining the origins of goods. These standards are one of the most important components of the free trade agreements. Technical standards are government regulations essential for protecting public health, the environment, and consumer rights. The countries that apply them to try to prevent third countries from exporting hazardous waste or substances to the region. To that country. These standards are technical specifications that determine the characteristics of a product according to dimensions, ingredients, quality, performance, and safety. The products intended for sale must meet all these requirements. And we have sanitary regulations that are imposed to protect human, animal, and plant life health. The institutions involved in these regulations are the Ministry of Agriculture, responsible for granting licenses for fish and mollusks. The ICA, its function is to provide clear-cut certificates for animals, fruit and flowers, veterinary, pharmaceuticals, and bovine equipment. The Ministry of the Environment, Housing and Territorial Development, in charge of the species of the tropic animals and vegetable kingdom, endangered species, and their byproducts. Ministry of Mines and Energy, responsible for the certificate of capital goods of oil companies, gold, silver, platinum, and radioactive products. Ministry of Social Protection, responsible for giving the green light to pharmaceutical products and cosmetologies. Some of the requirements needed for the control of pests, diseases, and toxic animals are things like laboratory tests, certifications issued by government entities, inspections of the product production process, control and inspection of the use of pesticides and fertilizers, and compliance with quarantine periods. Import licensing, authorizations or special permits that are given to the product can be imported. Thanks to these, the flow of imports can be regulated and limited. The World Trade Organization includes the Agreement on Import Licensing Procedures, which says that the import licensing should be simple and transparent. Customs regimes. When goods arrive in the customs territory of the community, they are assigned to a specific customs regime, depending on the needs, destination, and objectives of the importer or the exporter. That assignment may not take place immediately at the time of the entry of the goods, as they can be stored for a certain period between 20 and 45 days in authorized customs enclosures. There are different custom destinations for the goods that arrive. Among these, we should highlight the free zone, a part of the customs territory of the Union designated for member states. Within this special area, goods can be introduced free of import duties, other charges, and commercial policies measures until they are assigned to another customs procedure or re-exported. Article 171, first point of the Community Customs Code, indicates that there shall be no limits to the length of time goods may remain in the free zone of free warehouses, although it is indicated in the second point that for certain goods referred to in Article 166b, which are covered by the Common Agricultural Policy, specific times may be imposed. And other for things not to rot, in accordance with the committee procedure. Now we have re-export, the exit of non-European goods from the territory of the customs territory of EU. Those goods have been previously temporarily imported or placed in a customs warehouse. Re-exportation will enable the application of the formalities laid down for the departure of the goods, including commercial policy measures. In the event that the re-exportation is subject to the presentation of a declaration for it, the existing provisions for the final report, naming the exportation carried out in a standard manner by an exporting company, will be applied. Destruction and abandonment. In all cases, it exempts the interested parties from payment entitlements and not from the fines and surcharges that they have incurred, deducting the expense of filing and customs duties. The surplus of the product of the sale of the merchandise does not cover the amount of fines and surcharges indicated. Customs goods can benefit from an economic customs procedure through the requirement and subsequent concession of the General Secretary of Foreign Trade or the Customs Authorities, which is the Department of Customs and Excise taxes. Free practice. A release from free circulation is the only administrative procedure required before introducing a foreign good to the community market. It is an operation of great importance since it grants the customs status of community goods to the merchandise coming in from a third country. And from this moment on, goods can move freely through the community without custom duties, quantitative restrictions, or taxes of equivalent nature. Released for consumption goods will be considered those external goods introduced into the community customs territory which have been released for free circulation and meet the indirect taxes, VAT, and excise duties in one of the member states. This member state may be different from the one in which the release for free circulation was carried out. Transit, a customs regime also applicable to international inter-community transport of non-EU groups, and international transport of all types of goods between the country of the EU and Andorra, and between the countries of EU and EFTA countries. Like the TIR customs regime, the community transit has its main objective the simplification of customs procedures. Community transit allows us to by any means of transport, maritime, aerial, land. Before starting the community transit, the carrier must present the bank guarantee to the customs office of it so as to guarantee the correct use of the regime. There are guarantees for travel and global guarantees for such journeys, ASTIC, on behalf of the partner carriers, and may also present global guarantees, guarantee pass. Unlike the TIR regime in the community transit by roads, goods can travel in normal vehicles. No certificate of agreement is required. Likewise, and unlike the TIR regime, the seal at the customs office of exit is optional. At the customs office, okay, all right, we're looking at it wrong. The customs office, departure, transit, and arrival, the carrier must present the so-called key document for its completion. In these customs, there is no physical inspection of the merchandise, only the addition of new seals. Customs warehouse. A public customs warehouse is one where anyone can use to store goods. A private customs warehouse is, on the other hand, reserved for the storage of goods by the depositary. The depositor is the person bound by the declaration of inclusion of the goods in a regime of customs warehouse, or the one to whom the rights and obligations have been assigned. The main benefit of introducing goods in a custom warehouse is the lack of taxes on imports during the time that the merchandise remains in the customs regime. The goods may stay there for an unlimited period of time, except for exceptional cases and goods subject to the Common Agricultural Policy, with which has specific deadlines. The operations allowed in the customs warehouse are used manipulations. Storage of a set of goods with different customs status, transfers of goods from one customs warehouse to another, temporary withdrawal, and the operation of inward processing, traffic, and processing under customs controls. Now we have inward processing, refers to the introduction of a non-community goods to the CCT, the Common Customs Area, without these goods being subject to import duties or any type of commercial policy measure, to be subsequently transformed or perfected and exported afterwards in the form of a compensating product. This means allowing goods from third countries to be introduced so that they can undergo processing operations. An example of this would be selling a particular machine to the United States from Spain. At its destination, a fault in the machine is detected and needs to be repaired, so the machine is sent back to Spain for the purpose of being fixed and sent back to America. This type of regime has four modalities: suspension, suspension with equivalent compensation, prior exportation, and refund. Suspension. The goods are imported without paying duties, they are perfected, and the regime is finalized with the export. Equivalent compensation occurs when community goods, which are equivalent to those imported, are allowed to be used in the process of improvement. Prior exportation. The products manufactured from equivalent goods prior to import are exported. And refund means that the customs duty are paid, and later, when the export is performed, one can claim a refund. For each one of them, the corresponding authorization needs to be requested either by the General Secretariat of Foreign Trade or from a Customs Supervising Office, depending on the total amount of annual operations that are to be requested. What should be stated in the authorization are the operations of the scheme and economic conditions. The economic conditions should always be justified by evidence and approved by the Customs Authority. There may be, for example, an excessively high price, which prevents the subsequent sale in foreign markets because of the lack of competitiveness, inadequate community production, etc. So now we have outward processing, an economic regime which allows exporting community goods outside the customs territory of the European Union temporarily so that they can undergo processing operations and then be released for free circulation with total or partial relief from import duties. Exportation. All the merchandise that has to leave the customs territory is included in the export customs regime. Such a regime implies the implementation of surveillance standards, control of trade policies, measures, and custom authorities. Temporary importation, an economic regime that allows the import of non-community goods into a customs territory of the community with a total or partial relief from import duties. These imported goods must be re-exported outside of the customs territory of the Union and are not intended to undergo any change except normal depreciation due to the use made of them. The maximum term is 24 months, and it can be reduced by the customs of that country if necessary. Temporary export, the exportation or the release of community goods for free circulation outside of the Union. After a certain period of time, they re-enter the customs territory of the Union in an unchanged condition. Although the goods leave the EU on a temporary basis, the trade regime is applied as if it were a final export, with the difference that in all the documentation that accompanies the process, it is clearly stated that it is a temporary export. The reimportation can be carried out under a duty-free or VAT exemption regime. This regime is also applicable to goods exported permanently and reimported within a period of 3 years, providing they have not undergone any kind of transportation.